BBC Radio Merseyside.
Well, it's one of the most common genetic conditions in people of Northern Europe, yet it's one of the least heard of too. It's called hemochromatosis, and it's an iron overload disorder, and it's often undiagnosed as well. Yet if it's identified early enough, like with most things, it can be easily treated and cheaply treated as well. Well, this weekend sees the start of World Hemochromatosis Week, and it's being launched here in Liverpool on Saturday with a Patient Information Day. Let's talk to David Head, who's Chief Executive at Hemochromatosis UK. David, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us.
Morning. That's a pleasure.
Just explain what the condition is, hemochromatosis. What does it do, and what is that condition?
Okay, well, actually, I have to commend you on your pronunciation and also your summary at the start, at the top, because you're absolutely right. It's a genetic condition, and it causes people to absorb too much iron from their food. Now, most people know that if you're short of iron, it can cause a problem. People have all heard of anemias. But if iron builds up in the body and there's too much in the body, it's actually very toxic, and it can cause all sorts of quite serious problems, actually. And as you rightly said again, it's a very, very common condition in people of Northern European origin. But we like to describe it as it's the most common condition you've never heard of.
Well, that's absolutely right, because, and thank you for the for giving me the details about me pronouncing it in the right way there. Thank you for that, for the thumbs up. But it is. I mean, I was amazed that not many people had heard about this before, but it is so incredibly common.
Yes, and we've got a lot of work to do to raise awareness of the condition, not just amongst the public, actually, but also with a lot of healthcare professionals. We do know, and again, I have to commend you for what you said at the top, that it's often not diagnosed early enough. So there's a lot of people out there who are carrying extra iron, being poisoned by it, and don't realise.
So what are the symptoms? Because we know about a lack of iron, you get a little bit woozy, or you might be a little bit pale, and we all tend to be doctors now and again saying, oh, you need a little bit more iron, take this or eat that. What's the opposite end of the scale? What happens when you have too much iron?
Okay, well, the early symptoms, ironically, can be quite similar. So tiredness, chronic fatigue, is caused by an overload of iron, and also often accompanied by joint pains, joint problems, especially in the hands and feet. And people will also tend to get a little bit forgetful, and have what is sometimes referred to as a brain fog. So those are the early symptoms, and at that point, in the ideal world, people would be checked out and would be diagnosed. But in reality, we know that people go on to load iron undetected, and more serious symptoms can occur then. So the iron builds up in the liver, for example, and can cause cirrhosis, in the heart, and can cause cardiomyopathy. It causes skin problems. It causes mental health problems. It causes quite serious joint disease. It's associated with diabetes. So all of these things can occur. And do occur if the iron overload isn't detected, isn't diagnosed, and treatment isn't started. Like
with a lot of things, if it's caught early, if it's diagnosed early as well, and it's treated early, it shouldn't be a major problem, this.
Yeah, I mean, treatment is cheap, effective, it's drug-free. Treatment is a simple process. It's called a venesection, but basically it's a bloodletting process. And for most people, it's just like the process of going to give blood.
Yeah.
And if you take a pint of blood from the body, just a normal unit of blood from the body, then the body uses the stored iron to make new red blood cells. So it's a simple, natural process that leaches the iron out of the organs once treatment starts.
I've got to ask you about this as well. Our Irish cousins tend to be particularly affected by this. It's quite prevalent within the Irish community, this. Is there a reason for this?
Well, there is. I mean, there's some of it's lost in the mysteries of time, but the genetic flaws, the mutations that cause hemochromatosis do stem back to the Viking days and the Viking invasion of Ireland in so many thousand years ago. So it's well established that in Irish people, the prevalence of hemochromatosis is much higher than across the rest of the UK and Europe. In fact, some statistics suggest that as many as 1 in 5 people of Irish origin might be carriers. So it's extremely high.
And just before we let you go, David, just tell us about the Patient Information Day. It's on Saturday here in Liverpool, isn't it? World Hemochromatosis Week.
It is. So we've got 3 speakers coming along to talk about hemochromatosis and managing hemochromatosis. So we're going to hear from an expert on the condition. We're going to hear from a dietitian. We're going to hear from a geneticist. Information about that's at the Novotel in the centre of Liverpool. And information about that is on our website. And if I can do that, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, please do.
Well, the best place to go is simply ionoverload.org.uk. And that way you don't even have to worry about spelling hemochromatosis.
I'll let you into a little secret. I've been practicing that all morning. I can't name tennis players who play at Wimbledon, but I can certainly do the hemochromatosis. No problem at all.
Well, keep mentioning it because that's what we're about is spreading the word. So I appreciate what you're doing.
No problem. David, thanks for talking to us on the programme. Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very
pleasure.
much indeed. Just Google it. The thing is, when you go on the internet, don't worry about spelling it. Just close enough is good enough, and it'll find it for you and it'll correct it for you, and you'll be able to find it. And the first website will pop up will be the one that David mentioned there as well. So there you are. It's BBC Radio Merseyside. The time is exactly 7:15. Good morning. Good to have you with us.